So within Donald Trump's administration, Mike Pence is widely viewed as the more serious individual, the grown-up in the room, if you will, the more normal and traditional Republican. So Donald Trump has refused to commit to a peaceful transferal of power. And at the vice presidential debate, Mike Pence was asked very clearly, if Trump doesn't commit to a peaceful transferal of power, what do you do in that situation as his vice president? Listen to Mike Pence's response and see if you think he really is a more normal Republican.
President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as vice president? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election. Because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years, President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military, we revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. But when you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years, until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion.
So we're going to stop it right there because he just drones on. And the point is, he doesn't answer the question. He does not answer the question. And as a result, he is also, like Donald Trump, not committing to a peaceful transferal of power. And then he goes on to bring up Hillary Clinton again. Oh, well, she told Joe Biden that under no circumstances should he accept the results of the election. Now, I think that he may be taking her out of context. I think that she said something to the effect of, don't accept the results until all of the results come in or something like that. But the point is, nobody cares what Hillary Clinton thinks. Like, I understand that strategically it makes sense for him to try to tie someone who's unpopular like Hillary Clinton to Joe Biden, but nobody cares what she thinks. We're asking you what an incumbent president, an incumbent administration would do in the event you reject the results. Donald Trump, your boss, rejects the results. And his excuses here are just mind-numbingly stupid. First of all, he cites the establishment. You're part of the establishment, buddy. You are an establishment Republican, and you don't get to play that card any longer. You're no longer the populist in this race. You showed your cards. Trump hasn't been running as a populist. He's been attacking the far left. You're not a populist. You don't get to talk about the establishment anymore, as if you don't like them when you are part of that establishment. But he says, for the last 3 years, your party has been trying to overturn the results of the election. Again, Hillary Clinton being bitter about why she lost and blaming James Comey and Russia and this and that, that's different than the situation. Hillary Clinton did not have power. In this instance, if you refuse to accept the results of the election, you have power. You are in control of institutions that you can manipulate to your advantage to effectively steal this election away from Joe Biden, even if he wins. Now, there is an article from The Atlantic that I would encourage all of you to read. It's from Barton Gellman, and basically he explains how what Trump can do is he can cry fraud if he doesn't like the results of the election, if he loses, and in the swing states where it's close, where Republicans are in control of those states' legislatures, Trump can basically say, you know what, the results are fraudulent. I don't accept them. We are going to recommend that these Republican-controlled legislators appoint their own electors that they send to the Electoral College. And even if Joe Biden won in those states, we're going to have our Republican electors vote against the will of the people in that state, basically tipping it in his favor. Like Hillary Clinton, when she lost, even if she straight up refused to concede, which she did concede, even if she was insufferable after she lost, but I mean, even if she refused to concede, it didn't matter as much because she didn't have power. It's different if you have power and you don't want to give up said power. And the fact that they don't understand this is why they're losing. Because Americans, by and large, believe in democracy. They want to see a peaceful transferal of power. And whenever you and Donald Trump say that, well, maybe we will, maybe we won't accept the results of the election, that's not helping you, that's hurting you. And to bring up Hillary Clinton, it just makes it seem as if you're trying to dodge the question. And at this debate, if you watched it, Mike Pence, I don't know if he answered a single question. Like, he would not answer any questions. He constantly had, a rehearsed set of lines, all Republican Fox News talking points. Like, I honestly knew what he was going to say in some instances before he even opened his mouth. That's how predictable it was. But you are not saying that you're going to accept the results of the election. You won't commit to a peaceful transferal of power, which is an absolute necessity. It's the hallmark of democracies. If you don't accept a peaceful transferal of power and commit to it, regardless of the outcome of the election, then you're saying you don't agree with democracy. And, he tries to brush it aside by saying, well, I believe we're going to win. Okay, but what if you don't? What if you don't? The polls show right now that you're not performing too hot. Now, that can change. You could still win. But if you don't win, what's going to happen? Are we going to see a shit show? That's basically like what we're trying to figure out. And they're not reassuring us, right? They're not making the situation seem like it's going to be any less chaotic. And what they don't realize is that they're galvanizing the other side to want to really get out and vote, support Joe Biden, because people want to make sure that he wins decisively, so that way there's no scenario where Donald Trump can, try to appoint his own electors or steal it and cry fraud. Like, they want it to be decisive. So by basically inadvertently threatening chaos, by refusing to commit to a peaceful transferal of power, you're hurting your own case. Like, he may not believe that or recognize it, but it is hurting his own cause. So overall, I had to point this out. It's funny to me that Mike Pence is largely viewed as someone who is a responsible grown-up within Trump's administration. And sure, even though we might disagree with him here and there, he's a more traditional Republican. No, he is a Trumpian Republican, and the party is far right. And I think that if you listen to him for 5 seconds in this debate, you'd see how extreme he really is in all of his views. He's so far to the right that he is getting into authoritarian territory, to where you won't even commit to a peaceful transferal of power, the bare minimum of what we'd expect from an elected leader in a democratic republic. So, that was disgusting. It was egregious, but it was what I expected from ghouls, because, they don't want to give up power. And he basically told us that it's going to be a shit show. If Trump wins, it's going to be 4 years worth of a shit show. And if Trump loses, then we better, hold on to our seats, because they're going to put us through hell until Trump leaves office.
Mike is the worst progressive on YouTube. Please don't subscribe to him or become a patron. David Dole is so much better. Trust me, folks, he's doing a great job. He really is, okay?